Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and appreciate checking out our updates this week and obviously your continued interest and support in Pond. We just wanted to take the chance to share a bit more about where we're going and answer any questions live from everybody. And just make sure, number one, everything we're doing has been in community with feedback from all of you. And also just want to be very transparent and that no one feels like they're missing out on something, and just make this like completely shared amongst the broader group, because we're all in this together. And that's what I love about working in the nonprofit space is we're all very aligned. We have the same goals. We're trying to help the world and help these organizations do a better job. So with that, I will give a quick background on what we learned most importantly in our first year with Pond, the key pieces of our next steps that we laid out in some of the slides we shared, and then open the floor to questions. So I would say the most important two things that we learned in our first year of Pond, and I know we've got a mixed group here of folks that have used the platform and might not be as familiar. So for those of you who don't know, we started the platform in a pay per lead model for all of our providers. So we created a marketplace where nonprofits could shop for solutions, and providers would pay to speak with them. And that money would largely go into their accounts to build up a balance to help them pay for the stuff they're looking for. In theory, it's great. And we learned a lot of things that weren't perfect about it. I would say on the nonprofit side, our biggest issue that we needed to overcome was engagement. If someone wasn't immediately in the market for something, it was really tough for them to stay engaged and keep Pond top of mind. And even if they were in the market and they bought something, it was tough to have ongoing engagement after the fact too. On our provider side of the marketplace, our biggest issue was friction. So there was, with the pay per lead model, it, like I said, sounds great in theory, but it creates too much friction around deciding if you want to pay for each individual meeting. Is that going to be worth it? I don't know how much I'm going to get billed. Do I have the authority to pay for this? If I'm at a bigger company, who's in charge? Way too many decisions to be made. And our members ultimately just wanted to be hearing from more people. So the shift that we've made is to really reduce both of those barriers to be able to say, actually, we're only going to charge our providers if and when they have successful outcomes through the platform. So that meaning you've acquired a new customer through Pond, and we'll continue the same sort of incentive scheme with our members so that they are incentivized to engage, give feedback, participate in the platform, and actually able to do that on a more ongoing basis by opening up how we think about the crediting system to not be one-to-one funded by every individual meeting and every individual provider. In taking on this challenge, that might sound like, yeah, that makes sense, but obviously there's over 50 of you on this call here. There's hundreds of companies with different models and different structures of how this could all work in one platform. So we took a lot of time. I've spoken with a lot of you on the phone, and Johan and Ben on my team also have really been leading the charge here of figuring out what is everyone doing today and how can we create a structure that it has enough flexibility to be usable by everybody, but also consistency that we can manage as a platform and a company. So what we decided to do was to create an affiliate or referral fee model that follows a lot of the standards that many of your companies already have, but trying to standardize it for different types of companies as well. And we found that the audience largely split into three different types of providers. There were SaaS subscription software providers. There were service fixed fee contract type of providers. And then there was an other bucket. So the other bucket is kind of if you're charging on transactions, or it's volume based, or it's freemium, or just more complexity that's not as straightforward. The first two are easier for us to deal with. So we sort of tackled that first to say we can create a standard here. From canvassing the market, we found that 20% of a SaaS contract was a rather standard referral fee rate for the first year. And some people also had renewal agreements where there were subsequent benefits on an ongoing basis. On the service or fixed fee side, we heard things more like 10% given margin is slimmer, and some similar like recurring or future contracts at a lower rate at 5%. We wanted to set that standard and also provide flexibility because we know there are, people have different situations. And so what we opted to do was to say, we have a standard, and if you follow that standard, you'll have full-fledged access to every benefit of Pond, and our users will be able to utilize all of their credits on all of their interactions with you, so that in the future, they can continue using Pond credits to net out against your future renewals and future purchases, so that they continue to benefit from that in the future. If you can't have the renewal piece, or you can't be at the 20% level, or the 10% level for consultants or service providers, we get it, that people are in different situations. But to protect us, given that we are taking that money to pay out the rebates to our nonprofits that they've built up in their credits, we have to protect our risks. So we say, you can have, if you need to be at 15%, okay, we're just going to make sure the nonprofit knows that they're actually going to be capped on how much they can redeem out of their account at the 15% level of their purchase. And that's how we felt we learned would just be the best way, to the best of both worlds, to retain that flexibility, and also have a standard that we could start to adhere to. And then the last piece that I'll talk about is that kind of other bucket. And I would say there, we've had a lot of really constructive conversations with different companies that fall into that. And really, we're just trying to learn from them of like, how do you think about value of those customers? What's going to be most manageable for us? And so we think over time, we'll have more of a standard for those different types of companies. But for now, the best thing we found is just to reach out to us, and we can discuss what's going to make the most sense for those kind of, I would say, non-traditional, even though like I don't know what traditional is, but less straightforward or manageable contracts. In terms of timing, this is obviously new terms and new legal terms. So we've been really diligent of working with our counsel and putting together standard terms of use and contracts. And that's what we shared with everybody this week. And we want everyone to have accepted those terms before they're using the platform, since we needed to make one shift at one point in time and not have different people under different terms. So once those are accepted, or we've reached our agreement, you will have full access to the platform. Reach out to as many members as you want. I would recommend reaching out to people that have expressed an interest in something you offer, so that you aren't wasting your time, and they also will have the highest response rate. But you don't have to worry about being charged per interaction. The last piece that I will offer is just in terms of the product roadmap and where we're going. A big change that we needed to have this model in place for before we could roll it out, which is going to be happening for all of us in product development. I won't give a specific date. In 2 to 3 weeks, is the creation of projects. Now, this is really significant for everyone on this call, because it's going to make your life a lot easier in engaging with these leads. If you've ever used Thumbtack or Angie's List, we are going to funnel our users into, like, instead of just saying, here's your profile, list your needs, we're going to say, what do you need? Here are the follow-up questions around that need. You've created a discrete project that says, this is our problem. These are other things we've used. These are things we need it to integrate with. This is our budget. This is who's deciding it. These are a number of users, like the stuff that you actually need. Here's our timeline. And so we'll be able to better manage the data model around those projects to classify, hey, this is a CRM search, and we want to notify all of our CRM providers maybe it's based on their budget too. Or this is a search for a fundraising consultant, and we want to make sure this is flagged. So that's going to really help us automate the alerts and connections with everybody. I'm going to pause there and open up to questions, just since the group is so large. If you can raise your hand with the little reactions in the bottom, and that way we can kind of manage and call on folks. Right. James, James Bishop, if you could go off mute.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. So I'm not currently a provider, but I'm curious about it. I know you're part of what you outlined quickly, I'm trying to keep up, was how some of that funding or provider fee service changes. Is there something that we can read later that just outlines a little bit so we can internalize it better?
Yep. Yeah. James, do we have can you message me your email on LinkedIn so I make sure I have it, and I'll send that to you?
Sure, I can just stick it in the chat directly to you here if you want.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so to James' question, just to clarify for everybody who might not have received the email this week, we shared the updated legal form and legal terms, as well as just the key business points that we asked, we need to know, do you provide software or a service? And are you okay with our standard terms, or do you need to do something different? So that's really the process that we've tried to simplify as much as possible, and appreciate all of your patience and really constructive feedback. I just think by and large, we've been blown away by how helpful everyone has been. And I think realizing this will be really great when we can get it there. And there's a lot of kind of infrastructure needs to be in place. So we appreciate it. We had a question in the chat from Ryan asking about tracking orgs in terms of dollars raised in subsectors. So every one of our users declares their size in terms of what their annual budget is. Not a perfect proxy, but it's a helpful way to categorize people. And we also classify their cause areas. So you are able to filter and search between members based on those two criteria. If you have a certain sector that you want to work with, or that I don't work with religious organizations, or the goal is that this is as flexible as possible in order for you to use it most efficiently. So you'll be able to see, Ryan, you can see all that information. You can actually see that today in the browse members feature on the website. I think, Michael, you were next.
Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, I guess just wanted a little bit more clarity. I was looking through the PowerPoint, some of the documents. When it came to like the new model and the standard terms, I completely understand like the initial contract, and it said like required, and it showed the 20% and the 10%. I guess where I had the question was more on the renewal. First part was it said conditional, and I didn't know what that meant. Like, is there some things that don't apply to this, or there are other things that do? And then how did you guys come up with the like 2 to 5 years? And if it's after 5 years, is there nothing? I guess that's the one part that I would say the conditional, and then the length of 5 years. That was my biggest question. So I'll shut up now.
No, thank you for sharing that. So yeah, I'll take that in two parts. So the timeline was, and the reason behind the renewal piece is we have a number of members who are building up enough credits through their engagement with Pond that they're able to afford something that they didn't think they previously could. And it has changed the way that they're able to pay for something. The bad outcome that no one wants to have happen is they have the full amount to pay for your product, and then they continue using Pond and they continue having credits. And the next year they're like, great, I can use Impact Upgrade again next year and it'll be awesome. And we're like, oh, no, sorry, actually, you can't use those credits on renewals. Again, it's okay if they can't. We just want that to be transparent to them from the outset so that there isn't an expectation that they will be able to in the future. And it's that ongoing referral fee to us that helps fund the credits for them to continue using in the future. And then on the timeline piece, we just didn't feel comfortable saying like in perpetuity, which I know other app stores and things do. We just wanted to put a cap on it because, and we felt like after 5 years, that was a reasonable cap. And I was just going to say, feel free to, if you had specific questions, maybe on some of the language, Michael, Johan has been working most closely on the docs, so you two might be able to connect offline too.
Okay. And so you're saying we could say this cannot be used for renewals, or is that, so that's why it's conditional depending on what we're wanting to do from that point. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the provider profile, we just want to make sure it's clear to the user that this is a limited redemption provider. Limited either in, it's capped in the dollar amount you use up front, or that you just won't be able to use your credits on renewals in the future.
Okay. That sounds good.
Tim. Sarantino, sorry, there's multiple Tims.
Yeah, hi folks, this is Tim Sarantonio, Neon One. I have a few things, and some of them are probably better offline, but a big question I have is the reporting protocol. Right now, as the section reads in the terms, it would be an email that is sent on a quarterly basis with certain information. So unpacking that a little bit more. Number one, why that in terms of why an email? What's the security of the email? If there's any PII information for clients, contracts, things like that, because there was reference to audit items there. Understanding, protecting the information and security of our client information, as well as proprietary elements of our contracts. And then if you have, we got 62 people on this call, right? If you have 62 different providers, is there a standard process that they all have to follow? Let's say it's like everybody probably has a different configuration of Salesforce, HubSpot, et cetera. Then that's not even getting into the consultant side of things. So how are we understanding the consistency there and the capacity of Pond to be able to manage that consistency? And then in an ongoing basis, how are things being calculated on that? Especially because if we go to section 4 of the agreement, it does lay claim to things like not only SaaS fees, upfront fees, payment processing fees, upsells, cross-sells, things of that nature. So somebody's contract could change during the middle of the year. Somebody might downgrade their contract, upgrade their contract, add different service fees. It's just unclear. And I've written so many of these things. So I'm just trying to understand, like, what is the protection for us? Because a lot of times what I've seen is referral software being rolled out that just automates a lot of this. And so the primary thing is, this sounds like a lot of work, a lot of extra work on top of the lead side is very straightforward right now. Okay, get a lead, log that, there we go. Now I'm involving the operations team, the finance team, the client success team. There's a lot of other people that get involved with this. And so when it's a platform situation, I want to know the value on all sides. And right now, this looks like a value negative for when it comes to all those sync costs. So how do we address that?
Yeah. Johan, do you want to start off with just the alert email piece, and then we can dig into the second part?
Yeah, and like I'm happy to take the specifics offline, Tim. I mean, I think the goal, like we can talk about the goal level, is like that we have transparency into deals that are getting referred to you. And then we also have the ability to monitor those on an ongoing basis. If you have issue with the mechanism, we can obviously deal with that. Like that part is, if you'd rather do something other than email, that's pretty straightforward. The piece I'll offer you on the payment side of things that we've tried to do is, and I hope this was clear, we've tried to make everything bilateral, right? And so the concept of true ups or additional fees, if things go up, people cancel, like the goal is, you know, a certain percentage for a year's worth of business. If that changes, it goes down, we'll rebate you. If it goes up, you'll true us up. And so again, we tried to err on the side of being fair and transparent with all this sort of stuff. If there's specific issues or you think we've over-rotated with regards to that transparency, i.e. the reporting requirements are too onerous, let's have a conversation about that. But I think the goal was certainly that there's transparency and kind of bilateralness in all the ways these things were constructed.
The way that I'm interpreting it right now is that unless things are agreed without any pushback or question, basically hit that first bullet point of opting in, there's going to be what could be construed as a negative marketing element of you're not actually getting as much value compared to other providers. And this is prominently being placed on your profile, that there's an asterisk next to your profile by not just kind of signing off on it immediately. And that was concerning.
I want to make sure though that again, I don't know if this is worth with if the whole group's interested and we can talk through this. I think the intention of this is there's like a distinction for me at least between the high level business economic terms where I think that is true. And if they're a part of the like service delivery reporting, like the level down detailed, the how piece of it, I wouldn't expect to penalize you because you wanted to do a secure channel for communicating reporting versus an email like that. That's certainly not the intention of this at all. Like the economics are one thing, they're all the rest of the how here. Let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah, let's take this offline.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
No, it's a great point though, because I do think that is really important to flag, is that the business terms piece of it, that we want to be transparent to the member, because that is what affects them. And one other thing I'd add in terms of the operational burden is that was a big feedback area we had around our initial model, because what was required was the vendor would need to confirm with us the amount of credits to take off of a bill themselves. We would send the money to them, and it just didn't work with people's systems. And so we've made this move to say everything from the nonprofit user's perspective with Pond is in the form of a rebate. So we also manage things directly with them. We're not stepping in the way of your purchase sales flow at all. We just need to know via the referral fee that the purchase was made so that they can redeem the credits out of their account in the form of a rebate. So that change was made with the intention of simplifying the application of those discounts and credits from the nonprofit. I think our goal is eventually we would have a plug and play. So as you mentioned, there's different management tools, Salesforce, or however people are managing these things. Eventually, we would love to have that standardized to be simpler. So raise the hands, raise the flags when you find things that would be easier if we did it differently, because we're very committed to making this as clean as possible.